Hi Poke fans, Harry here, and welcome to my breakdown of the third episode of the Aim to be a Pokemon Master series. And this episode was insane. And there are just so many little hidden Easter eggs and details that I will be breaking down in this episode. But before we do, don't forget to subscribe, also leave a like and comment down below, and let's get in to the episode. So, spoiler warning for the episode Brock and Cilan and the Forest Witch. Now, of course, this means that Brock and Cilan are returning in this episode, and it is amazing. Of course, the title reads Brock, Cilan, and of course, Hatterene is the main Pokemon of this episode, just like Clauncher was from the previous episode, which I actually did a video on, which I will link up in the cards above. Of course, Hatterene is the main Pokemon of this episode, as its shield entry literally calls it the Forest Witch, of course, giving the Forest Witch part of this title its name. So, starting off with the first bit of this episode, the episode starts with, of course, Ash and Pikachu travelling with Misty, of course, continuing from the previous episode where Misty said that she would like to travel with Ash and Pikachu again. But of course, Ash and Pikachu start to get hungry, just like they have in many episodes, so they stumble across this restaurant and decide to dine there. However, whilst eating the food that they ordered, both Ash and Misty feel like they've tasted this food before, which sets up a returning character coming pretty soon in this episode. But before that returning character, of course, they all enjoy their food. Also, as well, Pikachu enjoys his food, eating all his food, and he balloons up like a lot of Pokemon have done in the past when they've just suddenly gobbled down some food. And Ash compliments the food, and the waitress says that she'll pass it on to the manager, and she calls out the manager, which is revealed to be Brock. Now, of course, Brock is the companion who travelled with Ash and Misty through Kanto and Johto, however, not the Orange Islands. However, while Misty left after Johto, Brock continued travelling with Ash, appearing to travel with Ash, May and Max through the Hoenn region and the Kanto region, and Ash and Dawn through the Sinnoh region. And his last major appearance was actually in the Sinnoh region in the episode Memories Are Made of Bliss, 567 episodes earlier, which is a long time ago. However, his last minor appearance was in the episode The Finals for Partner, which was only 7 episodes earlier. And of course, it's great to see him back. And as soon as Pikachu sees Brock, he jumps to him, just like he did with Misty in the previous episode. And I don't know, it's just great to see Brock back. However, with this reunion with Brock, Misty does bring up an important thing. She asks Brock why he isn't a Pokemon doctor, as of course the last time we saw Brock, he was actually a Pokemon doctor, and of course his entire arc, especially throughout the Sinnoh region, was him wanting to become a Pokemon doctor. However, he revealed that he gave that up to devote his life to helping the lady, which was the waitress in this episode. And even though this is very much in line with Brock's character, as he always proclaims his love for every hot girl he ever meets, is so sad because Brock, this was a major part of his story, and just to see the writers really throw it away is really a detriment to his character. However, it is great to see him returning. And something, again, in line with his character, it is revealed that the waitress has a boyfriend, and he is now returning to the restaurant, leaving Brock heartbroken, just like he has been many times before. And with her boyfriend returning, he actually has to leave the restaurant, which I think is not very nice of her, really. I mean, he gave up his dream just to help her. However, of course, this is very in line with Brock's character, and if he hadn't been rejected, we wouldn't have had this amazing episode with him. And moving past that, the theme song then plays, and I already did a breakdown on the theme song, which I will link up in the cards above. But in this episode, in the Pokemon section, it shows Butterfree, Pidgeot, Primeape, Lapras, and Larvitar, all Pokemon that Ash has released. Of course, Butterfree was last seen in the episode Bye Bye Butterfree, where Ash released his Butterfree to be with the pink Butterfree. Pidgeot was last seen in Palette Party Panic, where Ash released it to defend all the Pidgey and Pidgeotto. Primeape was last seen in the episode The Punchy Pokemon, where it was left to become a boxing star. And Lapras was last seen in Viva Las Lapras, where Ash released it to be with the rest of its pride. And Larvitar is the only episode that Ash technically didn't own, but he kind of did, and it was kind of a release, as Larvitar was last seen in the Mother of All Battles, where it was kind of released to be with its parents. And all scenes of these Pokemon are shown from their last major episodes, of course, with all these Pokemon in the episode they were released. All these scenes are from the episode, of course, that these Pokemon were released. So it's pretty sad, but at least we're getting returning characters in this episode. So, of course, talking about the main episode, moving back into it after the intro, we come back to a still depressed Brock after being rejected. However, someone recognises Ash. And this person is Cilan. Again, another returning companion of Ash in this episode. Again, like I said, teasing this episode from the previous episode of course, Aim to be a Pokemon Master that I broke down. I said, what is better than one returning character, of course, when I was referring to Misty. 2 returning characters, of course, referring to Cilan and Brock in this episode. And actually, Cilan's last major appearance was in the episode Cilan and Brock, Gyarados' Outrage. And this was the first time that Cilan and Brock met. And this was the penultimate episode of the Pokemon Black and White series, where Cilan decided to travel to Johto, and he met Brock after his Pansage was injured, and Brock treated it, of course, when he was training to be a Pokemon doctor. And Cilan's last minor appearance was again with Brock in the episode The Finals 4, episode Partner, of course 7 episodes earlier, and the Finals 4 Partner, Cilan and Brock were together and they were watching Ash versus Leon, of course Ash's champion winning match. And it is crazy to see that Cilan and Brock have appeared in the most episodes together, and this episode they are again appearing in an episode together. And Misty also recognises Cilan, recognising him as the person that gave Ash his fishing lure from the previous episode. Of course, as I said, Cilan was the person that gave Ash the fishing lure, and if you want to watch that episode, I did break down Ash and Misty Seaside one-on-one. So go and watch that episode if you haven't already, there's a lot of hidden Easter eggs in that episode as well. And then, of course, as they introduce themselves to each other, because Misty has never met Cilan before, she introduces herself as the Cerulean City Gym Leader and World Class Beauty. Of course, the World Class Beauty is a reference to Pokemon Yellow and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which she calls herself World Class Beauty or something along those lines. And this again is another reference to the previous episode, as when she was talking to Clauncher, she also called herself a World Class Beauty. And Cilan says, oh, so you must be one of the 3 beautiful sisters of the Cerulean Gym. Of course, referring to, as Misty says, her 3 sisters, as they are also known by the people in the Pokemon universe and outside it as the Sensational Sisters. However, Misty says that she is not one of them, it is only her sisters, and Cilan says, wait, he has heard of a 4th sister known as Spare, which of course sets Misty off as she shouts at anyone and gets angry at anyone who doesn't think that she is beautiful or doesn't say that she is beautiful. And of course Cilan apologises for that, and as he introduces himself, he explains that he is a Pokemon connoisseur, to which Misty asks, what is actually a Pokemon connoisseur? And to answer that question, Cilan asks Misty to send out a Pokemon. However, Psyduck pops out of his Pokeball just like it always used to do, and just like Clauncher did in the previous episode as well, it just popped out of his Pokeball without Misty commanding it to, and Cilan examines Psyduck and says that Psyduck and Misty are perfect together. But Misty is unimpressed, which kind of makes sense as Psyduck is probably her least favourite Pokemon, as it was in the main Pokemon anime when she used to travel, of course, with Ash and Brock, and also Tracy as well in the Orange Islands. However, someone that Cilan doesn't need introduced to is Brock, which Ash starts to introduce and then says that Cilan says that, wait, I already know Brock. And this, of course, is referenced in the episode Cilan and Brock, Gyarados' outrage again, the first time Cilan and Brock met, and also the finals for Partner, where Cilan and Brock were watching Ash's match against Leon, leading to Cilan congratulating Ash on becoming the Pokemon World Champion. Again, it's just amazing to know that the Pokemon world knows that Ash is the world champion. He's just not any normal average trainer. However, Brock is still depressed, and Ash wanting to cheer him up, on the advice of Cilan, Ash, Misty and Cilan take Brock to a flower field to cheer him up. And they take Brock to this field, and actually Brock cheers up, saying the field is beautiful. However, he goes, the field is beautiful like ladies, leading him to remember the waitress who, well, rejected him for her boyfriend, quickly sending him into depression again. And then we see Hatterene, the main Pokemon of this episode, the Forest Witch of this episode, given the title of this episode, the Forest Witch, meaning, and it actually senses Brock's negative emotions. So it sends him a psychic image of the waitress, saying that she loves Brock to cheer him up again. However, this action at first seems contradictory, as it's Pokédex saying it will deter people away or even knock them out with strong emotions if they are shown, especially if they've wandered into its territory. However, this image that Hatterene sends to Brock sends Brock heading towards Hatterene, which is actually all part of Hatterene's main plan, which I will explain later this episode. However, it does stop Ash, Misty and Cilan, causing them headaches, just like its other Pokédex entry states. So, of course, following on from this, Hatterene retreats through the forest with Brock chasing him, of course Brock thinking it's the waitress who's in love with him, and Brock knocks into a lot of glowing mushrooms as he follows this hallucination, and this is a reference to Glimwood Tangle, as this was a forest filled with glowing mushrooms, and if this is Glimwood Tangle, this takes place in the Galar region, which makes this the first episode in the Aim to be a Pokemon Master series where we actually know what region Ash and the gang are in. Because in the previous two episodes, we didn't know what region Ash was in. It was just an unspecified region. But this time, it is heavily hinted he is in the Galar region. However, with Brock running after Hatterene, Ash and Misty are confused too as why. So Cilan adopts his detective connoisseur's identity, and that was first seen in the episode Where Did You Go, Ordino, when he adopted this identity to find out where all the Ordinos had gone, and he did this several times later in other series and episodes. Of course, being a connoisseur of many different things, as we will see again later in this episode. So once this detective connoisseur identity is adopted, Cilan reads off a Hatterene Pokédex entry from memory saying that it can read emotions of creatures that are 50 kilometers away. And this is what Hatterene's Gigantamax sword entry states. And Cilan goes on to declare to Ash and Misty that Hatterene read Brock's negative emotions and lured him in. And then Cilan goes on to say that Hatterene's alias is believed to be called the Forest Witch. Of course, giving the title its name, and then Cilan reveals that Hatterene loves negative emotions and traps those who have them inside the forest. Of course, leading to why she lured Brock into the forest with a happy emotion to then just drop that and have him revert back to his negative emotions and trap him in that forest and then basically feed on them, which is very dark. However, that's not it for references to Hatterine's Pokedex entry. Her Pokemon Shield entry is also recited word for word about, of course, how she likes negative emotions and how she hates people wandering into the territory. And Pikachu and the gang, upon hearing Hatterine's Shield Pokedex entry, are quick to find Brock. However, they actually stumble upon Hatenna, which is Hatterine's base form. And after hearing the Pokedex entry of Hatenna and that it can sense emotions via its protrusion on its head, they ask it to help find Brock, to which it actually obliges, being much nicer than its evolved form, and also its other evolved form that we will see later in this episode. So, to help Hatenna help them find Brock, Cilan tells Ash to think about Brock, as Hatenna is on Ash's head, so Hatenna will know what Brock is like and be able to find him with Ash sort of thinking about what Brock is like. So Hatenna is acting a bit like, of course, for all my Doctor Who fans, the TARDIS telepathic circuit from, of course, the Doctor Who episodes Listen and Darkwater, basically when Clara was keyed into the TARDIS and trying to find her past and Danny Pink just by thinking about them, and Hatenna is working similarly to how Ash is thinking about Brock and then them hopefully finding Brock. So, of course, on the subject of Brock, we cut to Hatterine torturing Brock by making him see the waitress and her saying, "I love you," but then immediately the waitress then saying, "I hate you" to Brock. Reveling in Brock's negative emotions, of course, Hatterine feeding on them. However, Hatenna is on the case and leads the gang, presumably towards Brock. However, instead they come across Hatterine, which is the middle evolution of Hatenna and Hatterine. And Hatterine's Pokedex entry states that it will pummel anyone with strong emotions, even enough to knock out a professional boxer. And since Ash was thinking hard, of course, about Brock, about saving him, so Hatenna would understand why they wanted his help, Hatterine starts to attack them, and they run for their lives, just like they have done with many Pokemon in the past. However, luckily they escape from it, hiding in the mushrooms that we saw earlier in this episode, and they move on with the trying to find Brock. However, Ash and Pikachu's stomach starts to rumble, just like it did at the start of this episode, and so does Cilan's. And with Cilan's stomach rumbling, he mentions that he's a metro connoisseur, crossed with a train station box to lunch connoisseur. And of course, this is a reference to Cilan revealing that he was a metro connoisseur in the episode Crisis from the Underground Up. And of course, he also revealed himself to be a train station box lunch connoisseur in the movie Kieran the Sword of Justice. So of course, as I said, Cilan is a connoisseur of many things, and he even states that he would love to try the train station box lunches exclusive to this region, which is the Galarian form of Darumaka. That's what the lunches are held in. They're held in this, Galarian Darumaka case, which is a reference again to the movie Kieran v. The Sword of Justice, when Cilan, of course, revealed in that movie he was a box lunch connoisseur, and the box lunches they bought in that movie were in a container that were in the form of regular Darumaka. However, that isn't it for references to food, because Ash said he'd love to eat some of his mum's croquettes, which we last saw Ash's mum make in the episode Pokemon The Distant Blue Sky, which I actually did a video breaking down that episode, which I will link up in the cards above, so go check that out if you haven't already. And also, disrupting this hunger, Misty walks into Joltik, which scares her, of course, referencing her fear of bug types. However, this is a sort of retcon because she wasn't afraid of Ash's Leavanny in the last episode. So why wasn't she afraid of Leavanny in the last episode, but she is afraid of a Joltik in this episode? So of course, Ash explains to Cilan that Misty dislikes bug types, but loves water types. But why wasn't she afraid of Leavanny? The only thing I can think of is that it was under Ash's care, and that's it. But it's a bit of a retcon, in my opinion. However, moving away from this, Hatterene pops up and gives Ash, Misty and Cilan visions just like it did to Brock. Of course, leading them to run off in different directions, basically getting them out of the forest and splitting them up so it can feed off Brock's negative emotions without fear of interruption. So to do this, Hatterene gives the gang visions of what they love, which is what they were just talking about. Ash has a vision of his mum's croquettes, Misty a vision of water-type Pokemon, and Cilan a version of Ingo and Emmett selling boxed lunches. Now, if you don't know who Ingo and Emmett are, they are the leaders of the Battle Subway in Univers, and have a strong like to Cilan. Of course, he likes them as he is a Metro connoisseur. Of course, Metro meaning train, railway network, and also trains that run on the Metro. And he idolises Ingo and Emmett as they are subway masters, of course, running all the train lines and the trains. So that's why he idolises them, and that's why it fits in with his Metro connoisseur identity. And the last time we saw Ingo and Emmett in the Pokemon anime was in the episode Survival of the Striated Gym, as a flashback when he battled actually Ingo and Emmett with Ash. And of course with Ash, Misty and Cilan seeing their designers and of course chasing after them, these psychically created by Hatterene, they all run in different directions and, well, to get them out of the forest, which is what Hatterene wants. However, their dreams quickly turn into nightmares, just like Brock's did, with Ash getting crushed under a mountain of massive croquettes, water types turning into bug types, of course, that Misty was chasing, and Cilan just can't reach Ingo and Emmett to buy their boxed lunches. However, Pikachu is to the rescue and it shocks them out of Hatterene's trance with Thunderbolt. Of course, like Pikachu has Thunderbolted Ash many times in the past. And it is revealed by Cilan that Hatterene must have created this to drive the gang out of the forest, so Hatterene can feed on Brock's negative emotions. However, it has also been revealed in this episode that Team Rocket have been following Ash and the gang this episode, and of course Team Rocket are starving like they have been in every episode in the Aim to Be a Pokemon Master series so far. But because of their strong emotions to their hunger, Hatterene appears and proceeds to pummel them, of course making Team Rocket run off just like Ash and the gang did. However, moving away from Team Rocket and back to Ash and the gang, they make their way back into the forest, and they stumble across Hatterene and Brock. And it is revealed Hatterene is showing Brock Nurse Joy saying, "I love you," to Brock, and then, "I lied, I hate you." Exactly what Hatterene was doing with the waitress, making Brock happy and then sad. And of course, Nurse Joy is one of the big loves of Brock's life. He has had canonically a thing for basically every Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny he has seen in the Pokemon anime. And of course, Cilan resumes his detective connoisseur identity and introduces that Hatterene is making Brock happy and then sad to get more of a negative aura out of Brock and to feed and absorb it. However, Ash decides to stop this, knowing that if Brock gets dumped, he'll be trapped forever. However, Hatterene tricks Brock's psyche into thinking Ash is the waitress's boyfriend, and Hatterene is the waitress, saying that she wants to be with Brock. So to stop Ash, Brock sends out his Steelix, which was last seen in the episode The Arceus Chronicles, which was a Pokemon anime series, which was a special series to promote the release of the mainline game, of course, Pokemon Legends Arceus, and of course it was just insane. However, its last main appearance in the main series anime was when regions collide, when Brock and Misty travelled to Alola to reunite with Ash, and Brock used his Steelix to battle Kiawe and his Turtonator, revealing that his Steelix could go Mega and beating Kiawe. And then Ash is outmatched, as Hatterene also fires off a Psybeam at Ash. However, Cilan evens the odds, calling out Pansage, of course Pansage being his main partner, which was last seen in the episode The Finals for Partner, seen with Cilan and Brock when it was watching Ash's finals match versus Leon. So Ash and Cilan decide to team up against Hatterene and Brock, of course using Pansage and Pikachu against Hatterene and Brock's Steelix. However, Hatterene decides, instead of attacking Pikachu and Pansage, it will attack Ash and Hatina. And with Ash protecting Hatina from Hatterene, Brock is able to see through Hatterene's illusions and see that Ash is not the waitress's boyfriend, but Ash. However, unfortunately, even with Ash protecting Hatina, Hatterene manages to hit it with a Psycho Cut. However, Brock has broken free from Hatterene's trance now, and he says to Ash that he wants to treat Hatina. Of course, Ash being shocked that he has broken free from Hatterene's trance, but obviously wanting Hatina to be treated and healed. And of course, this is Brock's goal, to become a Pokemon doctor before he decided to help out that waitress. And seeing how Brock is treating Hatina, Hatterene mellows and stops attacking and actually apologises to Hatina for hitting it with a Psycho Cut, and also goes as far to actually thank Brock for healing Hatina. And watching this whole thing, this episode, has been Latias. Watching this whole episode unfold in its invisible form, the same as the previous episode in the Aim to be a Pokemon Master series. Of course, the episode Winds of Beginning, The Endless Road, which I did a breakdown on, which I will link up in the cards above, so go watch that if you haven't already. And the episode continues with Ash and the gang, after this whole ordeal, wandering outside the forest, and Brock declaring he will travel with Ash and Misty, meaning Brock returns to the status as a travelling companion of Ash after losing said status in the episode Memories Are Made of Bliss again, which was 567 episodes earlier, leading Ash to say, "The meals from Brock and Cilan are the best," referencing the fact that, of course, Brock and Cilan were the cooks of the group, and of course they cooked for the whole group, and their meals were amazing. However, Cilan then reveals that even though Brock will be travelling with them, Cilan will not, as he is attending an event where Ingo and Emmett are unveiling a new coach, as well as trying to buy their boxed lunches, which is maybe a reference to the illusion Hatterene gave Cilan earlier. It actually found that he was attending this event and gave him that hallucination, as it would give him the most joy. Of course, as the illusion was Ingo and Emmett selling box lunches, and that is the event that Cilan will be attending in Johto, leading to the fact that that's why he can't travel with them. So, of course, Cilan then parts with the group saying best wishes, safe travels, which is maybe a reference to his final episode as a full-time companion, which the episode was called Best Wishes Until We Meet Again. So they part again, leading Brock to go to Johto, and Ash, Misty and Brock travelling on to whatever adventure they might get up to in the following episodes. And as we leave Ash and the gang, we see Team Rocket again, and it is revealed Hatterene has given them an illusion of food, as earlier in this episode they expressed the desire to eat and have food. However, the food isn't real, as they never fill up, overall giving them a negative emotion. And as seen earlier in this episode, Hatterene loves to trap people with negative emotions in the forest, just like she was doing with Brock. And even though she let Brock go, she is doing that to Team Rocket, which again is downright evil of Hatterene. And then we reach the end of this episode where the outro plays, and it's a different outro from the previous episodes. And the song that plays as the outro to this episode is actually called Tashiki's Paradise, which is Brock's Japanese name, and it was actually originally the 9th Japanese ending theme of the original series, of course, the Indigo League anime, and it debuted in the episode at the end of the episode of Exciting Pokemon Relay, and it, of course, it was about Brock's love for Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny, and it was just kind of a really fun outro, and it was used as part of the Pokemon Karaoke-mon, where certain characters would come on at the end of each episode and like sing their song, and Brock was often left at the end of a episode to entertain the crowd, and he would continue to sing this song, of course, Brock's Paradise, over and over again, as apparently it was the only song that he knew. He would often say that's why he kept singing this song, and it's basically about, of course, his love for Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny, and that would be his, well, version of Paradise, and is just a really cool throwback to the original Pokemon anime, and that is what this outro of this episode is, the same as the original Pokemon anime, and I just think it bookends a good journey for Brock as well as Ash. And then, of course, we have a teaser of the next episode, which is revealed to have returning Ash Pokemon. As so far, this episode is the only episode to not have a single past Ash Pokemon return, excluding Pikachu, as every other episode, including the next episode in this series, have past Ash Pokemon returning. So it's just weird that we didn't have past Ash Pokemon returning in this episode. But again, it was a great episode even without returning Ash Pokemon. I just think this episode was great, and it is amazing to have Brock back. We finally have the original Pokemon trio back, travelling throughout the Pokemon anime, and I can't wait to see what hijinks they get up to in future episodes. And let me know down in the comments below if you like this episode, and also if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, also subscribe, and share it out, and I will see you in the next one.